Let's see how to use BigQuery ML to create a classification model. We'll use a common machine learning example that uses the iris dataset. So with the iris dataset, we're trying to predict what species of iris a flower is based on the sepal length and width and the petal length and width. So that's our data. So notice there are 4 feature columns, and then there's 1 column that we're trying to predict. So this would be the label. Now there are 3 different species of iris in the data set. So there's versicolor and virginica and setosa. But don't get hung up on the use case. We have 4 different numeric fields that we're going to try to use to predict what class or what value is in this 5th column right here. So let's take a look at the code that we're going to use to get that to work in BigQuery ML. Now, I've already prepped some code, so let's take a look at this real quick. So we're going to replace a model called the iris model, and this model type is going to be logistic regression. So logistic regression is used to predict what class an example belongs to. Notice here we're selecting our 5 fields, and note that species is the label that we're trying to predict. So these are the inputs or the features that we're going to use to predict the right class for species. And then we're getting this from our iris data set. So let's just grab that code and paste it in our editor, and then we'll click Run to run the query. Okay, now note the query is ran. It took about a minute to run that query. So now let's take a look at the next step. So the next step in machine learning is the evaluation step. So here, we're going to run the ML evaluate method for our iris model, passing in the same data, but BigQuery is smart enough to have split the data into 2 pieces, some of the data used for training, and now some of the data it's going to use for evaluation. So let's paste that query in and click Run, and that's going to return to us these evaluation metrics down here, which we can use to decide whether or not our model is worth or is good enough to use. Now let's say we decide the model is good enough to use, so let's see how to use it for prediction. So this is the query we're going to run, so notice we're going to call ML predict, and we're going to use our model, and we're going to pass in some data, just like we saw before, only this time we're just passing in the 4 feature columns, or the 4 inputs. We're not passing in the label. So let's paste that in our query here and click Run. And notice what we get back. The predicted label is virginica. These are the values that we passed in. And also notice it's giving us probabilities for each of the 3 possible classes that it could have been. Anyway, that's a quick look at how to create a classification model using BigQuery ML. This is Doug Renstrom with ROI Training.